Okay, next we move on to the case 2. So in this case, we have to consider the function pi equals f dot dx and xi equals g dot dy. Next we have to consider the exterior derivative. Exterior derivative of this function as d pi equals df wedge dx, and exterior derivative of this function, this is d xi not pi. Okay, d xi equals dg wedge dy. Okay, next we have to find pi wedge xi. So we know that pi is f dot dx wedge of xi means g dot dy. Now we have to find the product of these two. We get f dot g into dx into dy. Next we have to consider the exterior derivative of this one. So we consider the exterior derivative of pi wedge xi equals, so look here, d of f dot g into wedge of dx into dy. We know that, so d of f into g can be represented like this. So d of f into g over dx into del x into dx plus del of this one divided by del y into dy plus del of this one by del z into dz into wedge of dx into dy. Okay, look here. So this one and this one will become 0 because dx into multiply madadre dx into dy agutte. So this value will become 0. Similarly, e function na multiply madadre, so e term na multiply madadre, so this will become 0. So we get the remaining term as del of f into g divided by del z into dz into dx into dy. By using the anti-commutative property, so now this can be represented, or this equation can be represented as minus del of f into g over del z. So this can be written as dx into dz into dy. Similarly, again by using the anti-commutative property, so this equation will becomes del of f into g over del z dx into, so dy into dz. We call this as equation number 1, or we consider as LHS. Similarly, next we have to find d pi wedge of xi. Okay, which is equals to, so d pi means this one, d f wedge of dx, so into wedge of g into dy. So we know that df can be represented del f by del y into dy into dx plus del f by del y into dz into dx, because idina multiply madidre nange ee one equation barutte. So again we have to find the product of these. So we get the, so now we have to compute the product of these. So we get g into del f by del y into dy into dx into dy plus again, so g into del f by del z into dz into dx into dy. Okay, so now look here, again this value will become 0. So remaining is this one. By using the anti-commutative property, so this can be written as minus g into del f by del z into dx into dz into dy. Again by using the anti-commutative property, we write this equation as g into del f by del z into dx into dy into dz. Okay, this is d pi wedge xi. So next we know that xi is equals to g into dy and dz is equals to dg wedge of dy. Okay, so again we have to consider the, so dz is equals to dg wedge of dy. So we know that dg can be represented like this into wedge of dy. So we get del g by del x into dx into dy. This value will become 0, and the another one term is plus del g by del z into dz into dy. So this is dz. Okay, so next we have to compute pi wedge of dz. We know that pi is equals to f into dx into means wedge of dz means del g by del x into dx into dy plus del g by del z into dz into dy. Now compute the product of these two. So we get f into del g by del x into dx into dy plus f into del g by del z into dx into dz into dy. We know that this value will become 0, and apply the by using the anti-commutative property, this equation will becomes minus f into del g by del z into dx into dy into dz. So this is pi wedge xi. Now we have to compute the product of d pi wedge xi. We compute the subtraction or subtracting d pi wedge xi and pi wedge dxi. So we get, so d pi wedge xi means, look here, so this one. Okay, or we call this as equation A, and so we call this as equation B. Confuse ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ equation A B ಅಂತ equation ಗೆ name ಕೊಡಿ. So next we have to subtract equation A and B. So subtract equation A and B. So d pi with xi minus pi with dz is equals to g into del f by del z into dx dy into dz plus f into del g by del z into dx dy into dz. So illi minus ide, so minus into minus we get plus. Okay, now look here again. So here dx dy dz is common, we have to take it outside, and the remaining is g into del f by del z plus f into del g by del z. This is g, not f. Del g by del z. So now this can be written as del of f into g over del z into del x dx dy into dz. So we call this as equation number 2, or we say this as RHS. Okay, or from equation 1 and 2, so we have to prove LHS is equals to RHS, or we can say from equation 1 and 2 we can say LHS is equals to RHS. So LHS and in consider madidira. So look here, d of pi wedge z, d of pi wedge z means LHS yavadu, d of pi wedge xi is equals to RHS yavadu, d pi wedge xi minus of pi wedge dz. Okay, hence the proof. So this is the case 2. So ನೀವು case 1 ಅಥವಾ case 2 ಯಾವ ಒಂದು ಕೇಸ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೂ ನೀವು ಸೊ ಈ ಒಂದು ಥಿಯರಮ್ ನ ಪ್ರೂವ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ, ಥರ್ಡ್ ಒನ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ನ ಪ್ರೂವ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ಬೋದು. ಓಕೆ, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.